One, the idea of college and prison is offensive. In a country where honest, hardworking people struggle to pay their kids' tuition, handing the guilty a free education is an outrage. The better the education offered, the more perverse the outcome. Prison is supposed to be a place where bad people are sent to suffer for the wrongs they have done. We ought to reward those who play by the rules and punish those who don't. 2. The state that degrades those in its power humiliates itself. In a democracy, such a state undermines its reasons for being. The college inside the prison is a site of resistance and should be understood not primarily for what it does for the incarcerated, but for its contribution to the republic. College inside pushes back against the state's cruelty, against its tendency to amplify rather than mitigate, the desire to punish, understood here as the desire to inflict pain on those who have offended. College and prison is an assertion of optimism, of confidence in our collective powers. The prison as a dungeon or a site of systematic waste speaks of an eviscerated democracy, a society terrified of the scarcity it produces, of a people cowed even by the enemies it holds in its grasp. Punishment looks back in anger. Education returns our gaze to the future and is dedicated to the creed that change is both possible and good. The desire to punish is fed by resentment, pronounced that in any of the ways you may be doing so this week and next, and revenge. The college opens up a space for the future in a place that is typically dedicated to the retributive waste of life. Because of mass incarceration, establishing college and prison is necessary and an even urgent policy goal. It can help restore some educational democracy to the United States. And as one of my most thoughtful colleagues puts it, a man who came from the same neighborhood as many Bard students enrolled at Bard through BPI, but who ended up the chair of the history department at MIT, it shows that there is a way out of this madness. Our decision for or against college and prison goes to the heart of the systems within which we exist, and hence to the emergence of the self, the state, and of political action. 3. The college is the handmaiden of a corrupt system. The prison claims to offer security for the law-abiding majority and just punishment for the individual offender. Yet the system is increasingly seen as, quote, the fourth peculiar institution, unquote, drawing attention to the linkage between class and ethnic inequality in America and the advent of mass incarceration since the mid-1970s. Crime and its causes are real and devastating, yet our system makes them worse rather than better, and our supposedly colorblind war on crime exacerbates the stunningly unequal life chances of children born at the same moment, but in merely adjacent zip codes. Worse, the resulting system, with appearances of lawfulness and equality, shields political majorities, that might be us, from taking moral responsibility for their choices. The vested interests that benefit from this system are greater than the political will to change it. A popular Republican governor of California spent much of the last decade trying to rein in his state's prison system, the largest and most expensive such system in the world. He was crushed by the Union of Prison Guards, the state's most powerful public lobby. Meanwhile, the state's planners prepare to build future prisons by counting the number of poor children who enroll in school each August. The liberal arts college that enters this system becomes at best a fig leaf. The smaller and more elite the college, the more it aggravates the problem. It makes the madness seem acceptable, reformable. Reform. Indeed, the implicit message of college and prison, that hard work and individual discipline can make bad people into something better, actually strengthens the logic of systematic oppression. Worse, the college exploits the incarcerated and perverts its own ideals in the process. The liberal media love it because institutions of privilege appear egalitarian, establishing philanthropic outposts of progress. I'm afraid you also may encounter this next week. I don't know if everything is as well. In the exotic and impoverished world of the prison. At its worst, students and faculty alike perform a pantomime of assimilation, while they speak of universalist principles like critical thinking and the liberal arts. With no alternatives and years to serve, a handful of inmates accept the opportunity on whatever terms the college dictates. 4. People in prison can and do change. Many, maybe most, do so other than through age, but others, a minority perhaps, but one likely numbering in hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of men and women, struggle. They mature. They improve their capacity for kindness, for critique, for self-reflection, for moral judgment, for moral action. Most, all, will return home, and most all have children. These children, due to their parents' life history and the broader place in which they come of age, are, statistically speaking, on the road to prison themselves. The dynamics of individual change has high stakes. The prison, as bestial and corrupt as it often is, and as marred by systematic inequality, can be a site of change and improvement. For many, it seems to be a kind of refuge, and to be recognized as such, as disturbing as this no doubt is, by many of those imprisoned within it. The college, situated inside the prison, with its unique arrangement of social relations, its particular modes of discipline, and with the analysis of and care for the text and other readers that lies at its core, makes it capable of playing a crucial, precious, and even imperative role in change, if it occurs, when it occurs. In all of this, it has a peculiar ability, I think an admirably unique ability, to stand between the person and the apparatus of punishment within the institution, and to play the role of antagonist and catalyst for change. 4A. Sorry about that. People do not change, Draymond, no matter how many times you write in your plays that they do. That's my favorite line from a movie called The Lives of Others, spoken by a East German communist pig who's basically in charge of controlling cultural production in East Berlin, to a prominent playwright. 5. The college and the prison cannot be reconciled. I'll skip that. For about 10 years, I've been building colleges inside prisons across New York and more recently across the country. These elite liberal arts colleges are not vocational, though they do, of course, teach skills that can be crucial for getting and holding a job. They are not therapeutic, though in the world of the prison, they are almost certainly part of a complex process of reconstruction. These colleges are academically rigorous and refuse to pander to the poor, formerly uneducated adults who largely make up the student body, or to the low ambitions that typify institutions with explicitly democratic aspirations, especially those designed for the poor and the institutionalized. To be clear, the colleges in prison that we have helped to build may be unusual, but the people who study in them are not. They are adults from poor urban areas, and they are mostly Black and Hispanic, though far from exclusively so. They come from the places where most perpetrators and most victims of crime live, asterisk there. These are the neighborhoods devastated in the last 20 years by, among other things, what another colleague of mine calls the plague of prisons. Most of the Bart students in prison who have come of age inside the array of institutions that make up American criminal justice systems, those who begin to truly thrive in these colleges inside prisons, will every one of them return to the neighborhoods from which they came. They are all, with the rarest exceptions, guilty. W was a white working-class man in his middle 30s who completed a high school equivalency exam in prison. He sat across from me, silent and stiff, and his chalky face was purged of expression. He offered no clue as to what he was struggling so hard to say. We were holding our admissions interviews in a clinical, brightly lit classroom near the back of a 100-acre maximum security compound. The acoustics were tinny and distant, but the applicants and I sat alone together within inches of each other in a room at the far end of the hall. He had applied twice to the college before and been rejected both times. Eastern Correctional Facility was built in 1900 with massive stone walls and an enormous pointed cupola encircled by 4 large stone towers. It is surrounded by green pastures and backed by a high ridge of wooded hillsides that runs for miles along the Esopus Creek in the Hudson Valley. We have some of the best real estate in the country, a senior official of the department had told me, her irony gilded with pride. For over a century, passers-by along this bucolic rural highway have been impressed by the sheer bulk and grimness of the penitentiary and the lush natural beauty that surrounds it. The austere castle and the calm mountains behind it both speak in the language of the sublime, of a silent power that dwarfs any individual, overwhelming the observer with a terrifying stasis. Its design, a mixture of Gothic dungeon and Victorian factory, speaks of impenetrable confinement, hard labor, and timeless solitude. It is a total institution that needs no words to express its will. The truth of what lies within, of course, is different. There is a large yard with gardens, there are chapels, a mosque, and a synagogue, several vocational programs, and bustling gymnasia. All of this, as well as the warren of schoolrooms where the college now prospers, was hidden from view at the foot of the mountains behind the brutal facade that faced the road. Architectural historians have suggested that dramatically brutal prison design in the late 19th century was intended to mask the optimistic commitment to the state's power to rehabilitate, hidden within. W, like many applicants, had worked his way from prison to prison across the state to get to Eastern, because he knew that there he could apply to bar. The reasons for this attraction are many. First of all, perhaps there's simply little else to do, and the sentences are very, very long. Many applicants have what is called life on the back and will have done 10 or 20 years before they return home. Most of them went to prison when they were around 18 and dropped out of school in that summer after 9th grade. Some are granted a 6-month reduction in sentence if they complete a degree, a mixed blessing as far as the college is concerned. Talking about that. And in a 15-year bid, which is a very interesting term for a sentence, a 6-month reprieve looms disproportionately large. Some are under the impression that going to college can increase their chances of making parole, for better or for worse.